is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this political article. It's pretty funny. It's just about it's the rise and the fall of the star White House reporter. And essentially, they talk about how Jen Psaki does such a good job. You kind of look like a jerk for going at it with Jen, which is ridiculous if you've ever watched Jen and the way she just sort of circles back and lies. So someone could definitely become a star, like in the age of Trump, when you had like Jim Acosta, who was just doing everything they could to get attention, including karate chopping an intern. You remember that, when he wanted the microphone and he's just like, no, let her have it. That was a big deal. You can totally have people like that again if people had any sort of integrity and wanted to ask some hard questions. And there's lots of news. The Biden administration has been chaotic since the inception and tyrannical with like mandates and other stuff like that. But the media doesn't want to cover it like that. If they covered the Biden administration like they covered the Trump administration, maybe they'd have the same sense of like chaos that their viewers had during the Trump age, but that's not how they want to cover it, because they want to cover his butt. That's just the truth. So it's funny, they're like, oh, it's so boring now. Maybe this is what America needs. So I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but it's just funny. And I want to share. And there's one paragraph in this article that is so detached from reality. And it just shows how these people are not in tune with the common man. It's so elitist and crazy. And I just have to share. My only regret is this particular paragraph that we get to. They don't say who it is. It's anonymous, but it's a funny article. Also want to talk about this tirade that the Young Turks went on. That this Orthodox leader in Russia had some interesting opinions about the war in Ukraine, and I don't support, obviously, his opinion on that they're in the right. The Russians obviously aren't in the right with this war, but the chink went on a crazy rant about religion, and it's quite long. So I'm going to play some of it. Maybe we'll get through all of it, but it's crazy, and I'm not surprised that, because they've gone on a lot of different rants and they really want to push their morality, and if you don't kind of form your morality to their morality, then you're just a bigot, basically. And there's this terrible poll for the Democrats, and they're just in a really, really bad position, and they appear to be too crazy to change course, I guess. So we'll be covering all those things today. First of all, I want to thank everyone who is watching right now, who's watching live, who's sharing the stream, everyone who's following me across the different platforms on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. All my handles are at Black Tea News, with the exception of Twitter. That one's at True Black Tea. My backup is also True Black Tea on TikTok. Please make sure that you guys go to blacktnews.com, check out different articles that I have on the website. Please check out different merchandise that I have on the website, like the My Money, My Business shirt, got the You Are Not That Special mug, also got black tea, all kinds of goodies. You guys can check out the website. For those of you who are in the Metro Detroit area-ish or willing to drive, I suppose, I will be at Motor City Comic Con this year. I will have a table, and I'll be selling some of my books. You guys know that I write books, and for all ages, basically, I don't have my picture books out yet, though I have many written, but it's still waiting on like illustrations and stuff. But I have chapter books for young kids all the way up to like new adults. So if you want to come and see me, I will be there. If you want to purchase a book, get something signed, my sister will be there as well. She has some really fantastic art, including some really cool political ones. She does these text portraits, like she would draw maybe a picture of you or object or something, and it would just be out of like a phrase or a name or something. So she has a really good Trump one. She has a really, really good Ronald Reagan that's ridiculous. I think it maybe took her like 40 hours or something like crazy like that. And she also has Abraham Lincoln. So those are pretty popular. She has like other celebrities and does commission work if anyone's interested. It's Tina's Text Portraits is her website. So she's very talented, but she'll be there too. So bring cash if you're coming. But that's May 13th through the 15th. So if you're in the area, I will be there. I also have another book event that I'm going to. It's author event in Frankenmuth called Once Upon a Book. So I'll be there again. So if you want to go and enjoy the day and buy some books, I'll be there as well. So that one is in July. And as a matter of fact, it's been postponed for like 2 years. So I bought a table 2 years ago and I'm like, I guess I better go. Because of COVID. They shut it down because of COVID, which really sucked. Anyway, let's move on. I do have a meme. I have a top tier meme today, guys. This one made me really laugh. And I think you guys are going to enjoy this a lot. Are you ready for this meme? It's great. Elon Musk retrieves birth certificate showing he was born in Hawaii, runs for president. And I don't know if this poster is the one who made it. But he said, is there any precedence this happened before, guys? So oh my gosh. I think that's a good one. I think that I was pretty excited when I saw this one. That's a good meme. That's a really good meme. Oh my gosh. For those of you who don't know the background, the reference, because I do see some people from outside the US who are watching. Hello. How you doing? So Obama, there was the big birther movement with Obama and people saying that he wasn't really born in the US, which, if you don't know, it was actually the Hillary Clinton team who started that rumor. And there was like some kind of excerpt about him or something, I think in college or something, that claimed he was from Kenya. And so anyway, they spread this rumor, and so it got a little bit of traction, but Trump is the one who like really, really blew it up, and it was this big movement. And so, and then it made people like super paranoid because then Obama just was like taking forever just showing the birth certificate. And then he finally showed the birth certificate. And I don't know, by then a lot of people had too many suspicions about it. So when Trump ran for president, it was a big thing, and they're like, "Oh, you guys were birthers because people were racist." And I'm like, I knew people who were into the birth thing who were black. So I think it was just really at its core. Well, there's people who really genuinely believe that he wasn't born in the United States. And if you want to ask my opinion, I mean, I guess I don't have reason to believe otherwise, but I think it was just a lot of people didn't like where the country was going, didn't like that he was responsible, and were hoping that it could be undone. I think that's really what was the root of it. Do I really think that Trump thought that he wasn't from America? I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of it had to do with someone said Obama's a Kenyan, with it being a good publicity kind of moment. So, and then it was so funny on the campaign trail because the press and everybody wanted Trump to apologize for this. And so, so he had a press conference. And so the media thought he was going to answer all these questions or there's going to be some big statement to address it. So at the press conference, he was like raising money or something to get to veterans or something. And so he had all these like vets like come on and like talk about how great Trump was and how grateful they were. And at the end of the press conference, he's just like, Obama was born in America. Thank you. And that was it. So the media was so angry that they got duped into covering this press conference with all these people praising Trump. And all he did to address the birther thing was like a line at the very end. It was top tier trollage from Trump. Something like I do miss stuff like that. Oh my gosh. It was so funny. Someone just said they miss him in the comments. Like that, it was with the crying face. I'm like near tears. It was so funny. They were so angry because they were just. I guess they were just waiting to pounce and ask like 20 million different questions. And he didn't. They didn't even take questions either. Just like, yeah, Obama was born in the U.S. And then just like booked it out of there. It was so funny, and he got him with that. I think like maybe two times or something. Was pretending like the press conference would be about something else, and just tricked them into covering like free good publicity about him. But it was funny. But again, I this is such a good joke. Such a good joke. By the way, people are still so angry about Elon Musk, especially about this graphic that he tweeted the other day. Now Elon didn't make this; someone else made it. Now they're like selling mugs of this, by the way. So I hope he's doing okay. Like for the person who made this, and that some people are going back and buying it. At least the person who's claiming that they made it anyway. But no, I don't think Elon actually made this. But this idea that he's like the same kind of position, but the political sort of sphere keeps moving, and it's the left that keeps moving further, further, further. And you used to be on the same side, and it was like, hey, brother. And but now it's these people who've moved so far to the left are bigots. So there was actually a couple of like, I don't know, think pieces related to that from the left claiming that that was just absurd. I know Ben Shapiro was talking about on our show earlier. Of course, this his graphic rings true to a lot of people. If you go on TikTok or some other place where people are talking about their conversion, there was a whole walk away movement. People had their red pill movement moments. There's a lot of people who feel like the left just left them, and they've been pretty much the same. Bill Maher, who still says stuff I don't like, and would thoroughly disagree with, and thoroughly disagree with. There's stuff that he's just baffled at the craziness of like COVID and this gender stuff, and the wokeness and the just fragility of folks that he's often complained about on the left. And not too long ago, Dennis Prager was on his show talking about this idea that people believe that men can get pregnant, men can have babies. And they're like, what? No one is saying that. But of course, that's not true. And actually, there was a video the other day that emerged of someone giving like a lesson or something to the people in the DOJ about, it was a biologist, they claimed, and how they wanted to say, that women can't have ovaries, just say or produce eggs or something, say that ovaries do it or something, just to be accurate, but to take out gendered sort of language. And that's insane, but that's where our political sphere is going. So Elon's going to be talked about for a while now, I suppose. But again, I love that meme. I hope you guys had a good laugh. I thought it was funny. So speaking of jokes, let's talk about this article from Politico about the rise and fall of the White House reporter. Washington reporters have long considered the role of the White House correspondent to be the crown jewel of American political journalism. It has launched high-profile television careers, scored countless reporters' book deals, and been bestowed on the media veterans for years of ink-drenched work. But during the age of Biden, a perch inside the James S. Brady press briefing room has become something altogether different. It's become a bore. Some of those covering the most powerful office on the planet say that the storylines, while important and substantive, can lack flair or be hard to get viewer attention. There is industry-wide acknowledgement that viewership is down. Television outlets have been quick to turn their attention to other stories and bolster other units. There is a sense that main saga of the American politics is taking place outside the confines of the 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and that the journalists covering it, Donald Trump and the future of democracy, may reap the career rewards. The Obama press room launched a whole cohort of journalists into media stardom. The Trump press room launched another. The Biden press room? I can't think of any star, said a well-known television news executive. I don't really watch the briefings. Uh Okay, why don't you watch the brief? I mean, this is an executive star or whatever saying, I mean, they're claiming, didn't name names. A well-known television news executive said they don't really watch the briefings. It sounds like a personal choice there. Um, I think the person people talk about the most is Ducey, especially since Biden has insulted him several times, calling him an SOB and other stuff like that. So if you had to pick someone out of the crowd, I think Ducey would be the person you would name. But if the news executives, if the television news executives don't watch the briefings, don't you think that's just like an issue? Now, here, people were like glued to their television sets during the age of Trump because they were, I don't know, convinced that everything was just being destroyed. People were convinced that they'd find this new stuff on Russia and he'd be going down. You had people watching especially when she was like, "We found his tax returns," and then it was, proving that he gave a bunch of money or something ridiculous like that, and she just looked like a clown. Um, you had the border crisis, which is way worse. Like, talking about kids in cages, there was like still kids in cages, but there were so many people at the border, they just started releasing them everywhere. So if you're not really paying attention and tuned into the news, they're not doing their darndest to make sure Americans know just how bad it is right now. There's The Biden administration from start to finish has been bad the whole entire time. But if you cover it that way, you're gonna get scolded. They don't want to make Biden look bad because and sometimes they can't help it because it just is what it is. They can try to shine up that turd as much as they can, but it still smells. It still smells a little funny. I guess you can spray some potpourri on it or something, but it's still squishy in your hand. So there's only so much you can do with the Biden administration. So sometimes the truth gets eked out, and they have moments of honesty, but they don't want to present it in the same way that they would present stuff with the Trump administration. Now, Trump is a pretty amazing figure. I mean, because now, I mean, he went to Dukes with the press if they were, pushing back. He'd push back, but he was also funny. He was also funny. So you had these people who hated him who were watching his press briefings, and you had people who loved him who were watching his press briefings because they were funny. There's no love for Joe. When I went to the Save America rally that Trump did recently in Michigan, and I was there singing the national anthem, and I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, if you went, because when I was in the back room and we were doing the pre-show and we were prepping, and they were telling us, what to do, where to walk, or whatever when you go on the stage, and they had cameras on the outside, and the line was just still so many people trying to get in, and they're like, and the room wasn't full yet, and they're like, well, we're trying to move people in as fast as possible, and I'm just like, there's so many people here in this arena, and I bet if you went all across the United States, you probably could not find that many people enthusiastic about Joe Biden across the whole country to fit in that auditorium. Not people who be willing to wait out like a whole day basically to come in to see him and stay all late through the hours, because I arrived like 1:30 and I left with just enough time to get to the Chick-fil-A when it was over. Just enough time. So it was a long day, and there are people who had a longer day than I did. And I knew I had the VIP, so I didn't have to wait like in the line as long as everybody else, because there's like, you can get in if there's room. So there are people who are literally wait 7 a.m. or whatever to get to a Trump rally, maybe sometimes earlier than that. There's no sort of enthusiasm like that for Joe. So yeah, the ratings are down. But do I think news executives don't want to watch the news briefings just because of it's boring? Well, I don't think they want to criticize Joe, because there's a lot of important things that are going on, and there's a lot of important questions that they could be asking, but they don't want to ask. And when there are important questions that are asked, they'll lie, they'll dodge, they'll bob and weave, and it seems like Peter Ducey's the only one who really wants to talk about it. So let's go on. The dulling down of the White House beat is not due to lack of report of talent in the room, nor has it meant that the work being done has been important. Major stories are being broken down regularly on everything from COVID fight to the war in Ukraine to inflation to immigration and legislative battles over the social safety net. Rather, what is happening is a fulfillment. Notice they didn't say Afghanistan. That was a big one. Um, Rather, what is happening is a fulfillment of the central Biden promise, running for office against Donald Trump, the most theatrical, attention seeking, beltway panic inducing president in living memory. He pledged to make Washington news boring again. And well, mission accomplished, sir. Um, there's a lot of news. There's a lot of crazy stuff that's been going on. They choose to make it boring because they don't want to highlight how bad Biden is at his job, how radical his appointees are, how incompetent a lot of them are. They don't want to point that out, so they make it boring, but it's really concerning. Should be concerning to every everyday citizen. This reminds me of, like, there was an article early on when Biden took office about the big problem crisis of the Biden administration is the fact that there's not good, like, people to do satire on him, and that they can't find a good person to kind of tackle him on SNL. They're like, this is the first crisis of the Biden administration. And when that came out, I talked about it. I'm just like, what about the border? The border is pretty bad. I'm pretty sure that's a bigger crisis. And I know they're kind of joking. But no, people could mock Biden pretty well, uh, but do they want to do it successfully? Do they really want the jokes to land? Because good humor requires some honesty, and they don't want to be that honest about Joe Biden. As a matter of fact, their Trump jokes didn't really land very well because they had so much derangement and hatred toward Trump that they could not make the jokes land very well. Nor did, like, SNL get good impressionists. Alec Baldwin was not a great Trump. There's people on Twitter who are way better impressionists than people who they hired on SNL. There's one guy that was pretty decent, but there's way better people who do better Trump bits than what they've had on SNL, for sure. And they didn't really have good Obama skits either because they didn't really want to make fun of them. These are people who, when Hillary lost, they like did like a piano slow version, like crying kind of tribute to her. You know, they're clearly one-sided in it if it's corrupted comedy, but they didn't want to mock Biden. So that's kind of what this article made me think about. But here's the paragraph that is so amazing to me. Jen Psaki is very good at her job, which is unfortunate, one reporter who has covered the past two administrations from the room said. And the work is a lot less rewarding because you're no longer saving democracy from Sean Spicer and his Men's Warehouse suit. Drawing with Jen just makes you look like a bleep hole. Oh gosh, and the work is a lot less rewarding. You're talking about just being a journalist. Your job is to cover the news, right? Inform Americans, let them know what's going on. Which there's a lot of things going on. There's the war in Ukraine. There was Afghanistan. The border crisis. There's something new that you could be talking about every day. The fact that they've had more interactions with migrants coming over than, like, in it definitely any recent history, but it's just like last month was just astronomical. They have so many people that they're just releasing them within the interior. It was crazy when Jinsaki and them were like, oh yeah, we're just giving them cell phones and hoping that they stay in contact. So there's definitely things they could be questioning and things that Americans need to know. There was when they were having questions with Mayorkas the other day, they're like, how many of these people who may have been on the terrorist watch list might be released into the interior? And he just, like, wouldn't answer the question. They're like, you can't just answer the question. He's like, well, I'll write you or something. Like, why can't you just say it? Like, maybe the answer is none. Maybe they arrested them all and didn't release any terrorist watch list people in the crowd. But you could at least just answer the question since the cameras are on you and we're all kind of just wondering now. So there's a lot of content that they could cover. But again, they want to make their guy look good. But this comment about how it's not rewarding because you're no longer saving democracy from Sean Spicer. Sean Spicer was Trump's first press secretary, and then he got replaced by Huckabee. and then and then she was replaced by Mick McGaff. Gosh, her name's, I can see her face and I can kind of see her name. Kaylee. Yeah, she was good. Sarah was good. Spicer was aggressive. He was okay. There was a great SNL skit about Spicer. I'm not gonna lie. But this sort of attitude that they were saving democracy specifically from Trump and Sean Spicer and his Men's Warehouse suit. That's the the elitist crazy sort of comment. And his Men's Warehouse suit. Why you gotta trash the man's suit? Why you gotta trash the man's suit? And I'm just like, my sister used to work at Men's Warehouse. They're just trying to help people love the way they look. Give them like an affordable sort of suit, I suppose. What does that mean? Just what does this mean? What, that he was like cheap? What does this comment mean? I wish I knew who said this. I wish I knew who said this. It's just so out of touch. But that's Washington. That's Washington. And then this next comment, jawing with Jen makes you look like a bleep hole. I guess that's maybe what they think of Peter Ducey. Jen lies all the time. She goes around the truth all the time. If they have substantive questions, they're going to go back and forth with Jen. And it shouldn't work. You shouldn't be worried about how you look. Jim Acosta looked just like a troll. And I know people loved him on the left because they didn't like Trump. But that doesn't mean he was always professional. He wasn't professional with karate chopping an intern's hand because she was trying to grab the mic. And he was like, he didn't fight for the mic. It wasn't like a death battle or something like that. But there was like some aggression. Like he totally overstepped his bounds. He was very much in love with himself. People, he got really mad, I think blocked someone when they were like, "Dear Diary." And then once he like blocked someone or let people know how he didn't like that, people are like, "Oh, we're going to use this all the time." So if you ever are addressing Jim Acosta, make sure you start with "Dear Diary." But I don't think he's as talented as some other people who work at CNN, but he was the one who paid the price by falling on his virtuous sword every day to try to get to Trump and try to ask him dumb questions or leading questions or whatever. And you should ask the president's tough questions. But they were clearly, you could see the attitude. And what this kind of reveals, and they're like, "Oh gosh, no one's getting a book deal. Oh, no one stars. Oh, woe is me." Like, is that why you became a journalist for the did you get the job because you think it's important to relay the truth to the people, or did you get that job because you wanted a lucrative book deal and you wanted a show on your crap network? Important questions to ask, but I think we see the answers here. But I can't get over this comment about the Sean Spicer and his Men's Warehouse suit. There's more. There's more in this article, but I'm gonna let you guys, if you want to read that, go ahead and check it out yourself. That's a political argument. I mean, our article. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So let's get to this poll really quickly that came out. Before I get to the poll, I didn't mention that I am in the studio today, obviously, and I do thank Brighter Mission Pack. If I say something today that triggers you, no one cares. I'm, the captain of the ship, but they do like to uplift conservative voices, so I do appreciate Brighter Michigan Pack. And they'll be doing a lot of work along with a lot of other groups to win all across the country because the Democrats are in some big trouble. This is an NPR poll and a Marius poll. So that is showing some really bad signs for them. Independents right now are favoring Republicans at 45%. Um, that's pretty big. Latino is at 52% voters for Republicans, 39 Democrats. So there's definitely a culture shift there. Unfortunately, the black vote is still like 72% Democrat right now, according to this. But hey, I guess at least it's 20. It's upticking a little bit. But you got some more work to do there. And I definitely think that Biden is in the Democrats right now are red pilling a lot of people. So we still got some work to do there. But then you get to the bottom here, and you see that parents with children under 18 favor Republicans by 60%. 60%. Now I wonder why that is. Now the Democrats are now trying to phrase like the culture wars, like, oh, it's the Republicans, the culture wars, like we invented it, we started it, like we fired first. We didn't shoot first. That was, the Democrats are always the one trying to push more to the left, and everyone has pretty much kind of moved more toward the left on a lot of ways, but at the very least, if not left, I think pretty stagnant on a lot of things. But the left has gotten really, really crazy. It wasn't too long ago that the Democrats, Biden, for example, he did vote for Don't Ask, Don't Tell. That wasn't that long ago. Um, and he was the VP, of course, of Barack Obama, who ran saying that marriage is between a man and a woman. That was like the major opinions of both platforms and stuff. So now we've shifted all the way to President Biden doing an address to parents saying, if you love your kids who are trans, then you will affirm their identity. And the White House puts out exactly what they mean by that. And they mean changing their pronouns. They mean allowing them to use whatever their bathroom and locker room that they want. Seems kind of like an issue for women. But not only that, there's hormones, puberty blockers, surgery. So that is something that the White House itself is putting out. So that is very, very, very far to the left. So people who got super mad at this meme that Elon Musk tweeted out the other day, which is specifically what is happening. It's dead accurate. And they don't like that it's accurate. And what's really crazy is also the thing about the bigot at the end, but that's what happens. If you don't agree with them, then you are some kind of bigot. If you don't agree with their ideology, like with the trans stuff, they literally say, you're denying my existence. I'm like, I can still see you. You're not like that meme with the guy, and he like does this and he just like goes invisible and disappears. It's not what happens. But that's the sort of like hysterical nonsense that they have pushed and injected into the minds of young children, young kids, young adults. But they feel they have to push that hard because that is their very progressive base. So again, they're going to run into some big trouble, especially, and it's not just like the gender stuff with the parental rights and education bill and Disney and everybody like being in opposition to that. Before that, there was a big push for the critical race theory and stuff, and people saw that that did not turn out well for Democrats in Virginia. But they still pushed further, and they're still pushing harder. It's pretty insane. Now, I just saw a tweet response, I think, to this poll as I was like prepping, and someone said, well, we'll see. And I think they're like a California Democrat or progressive or something like that. And like, well, we'll see what happens if Roe v. Wade is shot down and how that'll drive out people to the polls in November. And I think people are a little concerned with that. I think there was a Detroit News article opinion piece about Republicans pushing for like a ban. Well, a ban is what's on the books in Michigan if they get rid of Roe v. Wade. But you have Whitmer who's saying that she wants to enshrine abortion as a right, which I think is really. I don't like abortion, period. But to say that this is a right that women have without establishing, well, where does the right to life begin? If you just believe that women have the right to do that and your rights to life don't begin until you exit the womb, then that is justifying abortion up to 9 months. So I think whoever is out there who is reporting on these things, who have access to the governor in any kind of scenario where you can talk to her, that is something that they need to nail down and need to answer. And I tried to get that out of Haley Stevens like a week or two ago, and she would not answer. She refused to answer. But that's very, very important if you're going to push that, which you don't have a right to that. You just don't. You just don't. Definitely not a constitutional right. Um, but the opinion piece was about how pushing this absolutist view could end up like helping the governor in the midterms or whatever. And people just need to continue to make their case. Like I just said that case. Like someone was like, "Well, what do you?" Someone asked me that question at a red team party, and I brought up the where does life begin? Because if you just say it's a constitutional right without giving any sort of moral I guess thought to the child or whatever, and acknowledging where their rights begin, moral consideration was what I was trying to think about, without giving them any sort of moral consideration, then you are justifying abortion up to 9 months. And I know most people don't like that. I know like most everyone, like 99% of people on the planet probably would not like that. um but you are justifying it. So at your core, what are you for? So the governor needs to explain that. Everyone needs to explain that, because we're talking about life and death. But on a bigger note, if Roe v. Wade is shut down and that brings out the droves of Democrats to vote Democrat and sways independents and other people, if they're willing to let Democrats win, even though the Democrats also want your children to learn about sexual orientation, and they want to push um sexual orientation, gender identity, they want to push that men can get pregnant, have periods and all this other kind of stuff, put men in women's prisons, put boys in girls locker rooms, beat them in sports and all the other kind of stuff. um that seems absurd to me. One of the pushbacks that I usually get from people when I have these conversations is they'll say things like, "Why do you care so much about a potential human?" Which is not a potential human. It is a human, with potential. Why don't you care more about people who are alive, like real humans? Okay, they're all real humans, but just let's go there for a second. Um, you don't think it's a more important issue for these parents to protect their children from racial indoctrination, from this gender indoctrination and stuff? I'd like to wager, and I'd like to think that at the end of the day, that's more important than having the right to an abortion in a developed country like the U.S., where we have upward mobility, lots of support, very charitable organizations, access to birth control. You know, um, I don't think it makes sense why our nation has such a high rate of abortion compared to other countries. Is not even just developed ones, just countries. Period. It's very, very high, and we have very, very progressive uh, allowances for abortion in a nation, again, with so many ways to help women and to prevent pregnancy. Which I think the reason for that, why we have so many, is just because we have so many entitled people in this nation who have basically disassociated themselves with commitment and value, I guess responsibility. If you say responsibility, people like shriek, people just shriek. But here's the truth, and I'm going to get off this topic and move on. But when people talk about how to prevent abortions, like, do we look at the numbers on like why, on who's having them and why they're having them? Because 86%, according to the CDC, 86% of women who have abortions are unwed. So, and I know it's not a thing about people just not knowing they'll get pregnant, because more than 80% of abortions are done from women I think, to 40. So I know people have access to information to prevent that. So why are women doing it? Because what would they say their number one reasons is because they don't feel that they're ready, which that's within your control without having abortion, and they say because they can't afford it. And again, life is not linear. The U.S. has a lot of upward mobility. Maybe you'll never be rich, but if you make some good decisions for yourself, you don't have to be permanently poor in the United States. But if you are a woman who is sort of philandering around with deadbeats and you get saddled with a kid, it does make life extraordinarily harder. So, oh gosh, got some kind of weirdo. So, anyway, I'm gonna get off my soapbox now. Gonna get off my soapbox with that and move on to the last bit of the segment today with Chank from the Young Turks. They went on this anti-religion tirade, and again, I don't just a backstory with where this rant is coming from. This article of Newsweek is reporting that a major religious leader in Russia has come out in support of the invasion of Ukraine and laid blame on support of gay rights. And why the heck would you do that? I mean, other than like being a propagandist or whatever. So FYI, I don't support the invasion in Ukraine, and I think um, that sort of reasoning is absurd. So I'm going to agree with Cenk there and leave it at that. And I want to play a bit of his tirade because it's been hysterical.
First, let me go off on this guy. So there's nothing sinful about being gay. There just isn't. People are born that way, and if they're born that way, guess who made them that way? God made them that way. So you got a problem with it, take it out with God. Are you saying God made a mistake? Is that what you're saying? Orthodox religious leader? Is that what you're saying? That God's a screw up? What kind of an insult to God is that? Do they occur in nature? They clearly occur in nature. Clearly. Who created nature? God did. So don't tell me, no, you don't understand. So we think a rabbi wrote this 2,500 years ago when we didn't know anything at all. And we thought that the stars were little pinholes that God created in the sky to let the light of heaven through. And I'm still believing that nonsense, and I'm oppressing people with it. I'm killing people with it. I'm ruining their lives with it because I'm saying you're sinful.
So there's just a lot right there. So people may have had sort of archaic views on stars and other kind of stuff like that, but actually the Bible, my dad actually wrote a book on this about scientific secrets of the Bible, and then Would God Leave a Record? And he has a book called Genesis to Armageddon and Beyond, but that deal with a lot of scientific statements that the Bible does make. If you are a Christian, you do believe that the Bible is the inspired word of God, and it's not just some rabbi writing down something. So there's that. There's just like a total sort of disrespect for theology as he goes on a tirade against theology. So I don't know if you're going to argue and critique it and say about people's religion. I mean, and you can critique it from the outside, but if you're going to play this game when you're trying to use it to justify your opinion, you should at least play by those rules, you know? So he just has a lot theologically that's just like out of the box. But I don't understand why. I mean, people understand where certain biblical stances are. No, just existing isn't a sin. But it would be sinful if I went out, and I'm an unmarried woman. If I went out and had sex with someone who's not my husband, that would be fornication. We are beings who liked and enjoy those sorts of things, but so just because that would be something that I would find naturally pleasurable doesn't make it not sinful. So these tirades are, I don't know, are just It's just really crazy. And in my head, someone pointed out on Twitter, and I don't know if you guys ever saw the video of Chink talking about pleasuring animals. So people were asking, like, does he consider that to be natural too? Because Chink has some weird views, but he's expressed some bigotry before. Actually, I did a video about Democrats and their sort of bigotry toward religion, and the Young Turks has one video with a Trump appointee when he was going through a confirmation hearing, and Bernie Sanders really grilled him about he wrote a paper for his where he worked for the school that focused on the centrality of Jesus Christ being like the only way to heaven. And that's like the whole sort of, thing with Christianity. We do believe that you have to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and only way through the Father is through him. If you don't have to believe that, you don't have to agree with it, but that's, again, those are the rules. I didn't make them. And so Bernie Sanders just thought that was so abhorrent, and he's like, you're saying that Muslims don't know God, and they're not going to heaven. And he's just like, sir, I'm a Christian, and we believe I wrote a paper on the centrality of Jesus Christ. And he would just keep repeating, like, I'm a Christian. He's like, I know you're a Christian. And he just thought it was so disgusting that the Christian wasn't like, oh yeah, sure, like everyone can get in. Like, and Bernie Sanders like, well, this isn't someone that we should be allowing in our country, and allowing in leadership or something along those lines. And the Young Turks like labeled the video, Bernie Sanders owns bigot Christian or something along those lines. And he's just expressing what his faith believes. But if the tables were turned and it was Ilhan Omar or something, Bernie Sanders wouldn't be grilling her and saying, you don't believe Jesus is God? You think Christians are wrong? No, Bernie Sanders wouldn't do that. It's just a bigotry toward Christians. Like, people believe different things, and we can't all be right. Someone has to be wrong. And you know what? That's just how it is. But he wouldn't talk about how disrespectful it is for Rashida Tlaib to downgrade Jesus from God to a prophet. Bernie Sanders wouldn't do that, and the Young Turks wouldn't go into tirade about that and label all Muslims bigots because they don't, Muslims or Jews and other people wrong or whatever because they don't believe it in the centrality of Jesus. So the Young Turks are strange, man.
You're sinful for doing something that is 100% natural to you. So no, religious leaders like that are the ones who are deeply, deeply immoral. They're bad people, they're evil people, and they bring sin into the world because they bring hatred and fear of others that God created. He's against God. He's a demon. Well, okay, just to speak their goddamn language. When you look at the fundamentalist religious leaders, the top ones throughout the world, most of the time they are evil, and they don't believe in God. They don't believe in spirituality. They believe in power, and they believe in fear and hatred, and they push that hatred to everyone. It's a poison. Don't ever allow them to call themselves righteous. They are not at all righteous. Look at him. Look at all that murder that cleric is in favor of. Why? Well, we had to murder them in order to liberate them from not hating gay people. Now this is disgusting.
So I agree that what the cleric said wasn't appropriate. I'm pretty sure the Lord didn't tell him that anyway. So but this this idea that if he believes that people are just spreading hate for pointing out that one thing they believe is sin, one thing's not a sin. Cenk spreads hate all the time. It's such a bizarre rant, but they have their ideas that they hold so strongly to, like Anna Kasparian after the 2016 election. Do you guys remember when she was like, I'm better than you? Yes, I'm bleeping better than you. And then they'll get mad and complain about pro-life people and say, get your religion out and you bigots and all that other kind of stuff. And when majority of pro-life people I see don't argue religion when they talk about that issue. I have written pieces about why I obviously believe the Bible is a pro-life book, and why I don't think it permits abortion. And if you're going to say like, well, God's killed a lot of people, there's a difference between God issuing his judgment versus people uh, disobeying his commandments and being able to take out anyone they want for whatever reasons at their whims. So again, if you're going to use the Bible as some sort of justification, and if you're going to use it to criticize itself, you can at least understand the rules. So people will try to use that all the time. The most people I see actually bring up religion in those sorts of debates are pro-choice people who do not even care about the Bible. They just think they're getting one up on the Christians and whatnot. And it's very strange. But I do have a article on my website on blacktnews.com about the Bible and breaking down that debate. Again, I don't normally bring it up in those conversations, though I don't know if people always just guess or they can just discern that I am a Christian. So I just got sick of people bringing it up and saying a lot of false things. So I put it together in a nice little article that you guys can share if you want to go to the website. So yeah, poor Chink. I just thought that was a pretty hysterical sort of rant. That you're the demon. Again, I don't agree with that priest sort of laying that out or the invasion. But to be like, you're made this way and it's not sinful, like, again, if you're gonna adhere to that religion, the rules are the rules. Again, it's not sinful for me to simply exist or something, but it would be sinful if I went out fornicating or something. Like, behaviors are sinful. And last thing I'll say, it doesn't matter how you're born if you were meant to be born again. So anyway, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website. There was someone who kept repeatedly typing something on YouTube, and I ended up blocking them because from where I was looking and working, it kind of looked like they were typing die over again, but maybe they were typing DEI. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'll have to go back and look at the comments, but it was kind of alarming. I just saw like die in the comments, and I was like, I'm gonna block this person. But I'll have to. It's so funny, the diversity, equity, inclusion, because I mean, just a flip of two letters, and it is just saying die. So I wonder how what was when they had a meeting to discuss diversity, equity, inclusion. I mean, clearly they were like, well, we can't put inclusion first, we got to put equity, before that, so we're not spelling die. But is there kind of like some kind of heinous underground group, they're like, yes, it's kind of like die but not, ha 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 ha, and just are kind of like it's an inside joke a bit. I don't know, but that kind of stuff is toxic. I mean, they can't push CRT like they had before because it got so toxic because of Chris Rufo and other folks who jumped on the bandwagon. So now they're just trying to really incorporate the diversity, equity, inclusion stuff, but it's just spin-offs of that. So if you find that stuff in your school, please fight against it. And again, I think that's still going to be the driving factor out with elections. 60% of the parents, yeah, 60% of parents with kids under 18 are supporting Republicans. That it's not going to go well in November, and maybe Roe v. Wade will play a role if it's struck down. I assume it'll play a role, but half of the country is, and maybe more. Everyone says that they're not for abortion; they're just for the woman to have that choice. But when I have debates, a lot of people just don't understand embryology. They don't understand that is a life. They don't know much about the science and stuff. And so people keep saying stuff like, well, if you want to have less abortions, well, we need comprehensive sex education. And I'll say, like, well, what does that mean? Like, if we have comprehensive sex education where you had, like, I don't know, like a dude coming in to just say, like, I ruined my life by having all these babies, and we need to have, like, all my checks are cut up in all sorts of different ways. Don't be like me, kids. Make sure you love her and you marry the, that you buy the cow before you milk it or whatever. Maybe a situation like that, but I'm like also explaining embryology, explaining why abortion is bad, what happens to the babies, even like maybe show them what actual like pictures after abortion, like, oh no, that's too far. And I'm like, no, I want it to be like a scared straight thing. Like, the purpose of sex education, it should be to dissuade people from getting pregnant and from getting STDs. So I'm trying to convince some people to really not do that. But it seems like what's really happened is people have thrown up their hands and said, well, kids are going to do anyway. We just might as well make sure that they're doing it safe. So I don't think people have clear objectives anymore. So I think we need to figure those out before you continue allowing the left to just take over. By the way, I saw this documentary. I don't know how old it was, about the Kinsley Institute, I think it was. And this pedophile, well, I don't know if he was a pedophile himself, but he really pushed for the sexual revolution in the US, and he got quite a bit of his data from pedophiles, and it was really disgusting, and it ruined my day the other day. But I think it's something people should know about, so I will share that. A friend of mine shared it with me, and I'm gonna pass it on to you, because there are some weirdos out there, and perhaps you need to know about the sort of people who pushed to normalize all of this sexual impropriety out in the world. Who And one interesting thing about it, interesting as in it's going to make you lose some sleep tonight, I'm sure, is that they just like promised like total confidentiality. So there would be people who would be like molesting children and other stuff like that, who would send in their logs about how they made children react and stuff. And Kinsey, the institute's like, oh, we can't. Well, they claim things aren't logged properly, so they couldn't like find certain things alleged with certain crimes. But they're like, they at times when like Congress said that they were going to try to get them in for hearings and other stuff, they have like plans to just like burn all that, like to get rid of all that stuff because they don't want to hand it over. And there was one young woman who was convinced that part of her sexual assault from her father made it into the data that was used for one of his books. And it was just really heartbreaking and gross. And I'm sorry to leave you with such unpleasant things, but I'll post that link on my Facebook and my Twitter, and let you guys watch that yourselves. I don't want to talk much more about it. Anyway, God bless you guys. I'm going to church tonight. I'm going to church tonight. I hope you guys have a good weekend. Again, please make sure you visit blacktnews.com. Check out different content that I have the website. If you enjoy what I do here, please make sure that you consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com /donate. Check out different merch that I have at the store, like the I Am Not the Victim You're Looking For, Be Better Not Better, and also got the Cool Goat hoodies and the t-shirts. Thank you guys, and I will